CNBC TV 18, celebrating 15 years of leadership.
Our top story tonight, growth balloons under the revised method for calculating the GDP. The Chief Statistical Office predicts GDP for FY15 to be at 7.4%, but nominal GDP is pegged below budget estimates, which could take 10,000 crore rupees from the Finance Minister's hands. The sell-off intensifies on the Lal Street. Markets fall for the 7th straight day. Sensex stacks nearly 500 points. The Nifty is now just 25 points above 8,500. In earnings, corner engineering and construction giant Larsen & Toubro disappoints with its third quarter earnings. Profits and revenues rise, but well below expectations. The stock takes a beating after the company cuts its order inflow guidance. The Indian Express reveals the number of Indians allegedly holding accounts at HSBC's Swiss subsidiary has doubled to nearly 1,200. Government says it was aware of most of the new names revealed and promises to prosecute those they find evidence pointing to any illegality.
It makes sense in the long run to merge, provided the circumstances are in our favor and there is no loss of value to either shareholder.
Deepak Parekh backs once again for a merger between HDFC and HDFC Bank, but also says it may not happen this year. Political and constitutional crisis in Bihar. Nitish Kumar meets the governor and stakes claim to form the government. Parades his MLAs in Patna. Chief Minister Manji demands secret ballot during the trust vote, says his expulsion from the JDU is illegal. And it's decision day in Delhi tomorrow. Exit polls give the AAP the advantage, but the BJP insists its internal assessments show that they will form the government.
And the BAFTA goes to Boyhood. Richard Linklater, Kathleen Sutherland. And the BAFTA is awarded to Richard Linklater. And the BAFTA goes to Julianne Moore.
Wow. Thank you so much, Liz. Thank you for including me among these beautiful performances.
Well, thank you so much for breaking my heart. Those were the words of 22-year-old British soul singer Sam Smith, who thanked his ex-lover after winning the top 4 awards at the Grammys. And Richard Linklater's Boyhood was the big winner at the British Film Academy Awards. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India with Sao Ananta. It seems like the Grammys also had an India connection. Finally, for once, we did actually have one. Shireen Bangalore-based Ricky Cage won the award for the Best New Age Album. And Sitar Maestro Ravi Shankar's daughter, Anushka, was also in the race, but she missed out. Shireen, the big message from the Grammys are if you've got your heart broken, you're likely to win, especially if you're British. Let's not forget Adele. So it's good news to have your heart broken just before the Grammys, and Sam Smith is proof of that. So the BAFTAs are out, and all eyes now on the big one, the Oscars. On that musical note, let's head to the Lal Street, where the song and dance has been missing for a while now. The sell-off is only intensifying on the markets as they slump for the 7th straight session. The Sensex lost nearly 500 points today to hit its lowest level in the past 3 weeks. The Nifty lost about 130 points. It's now nearing the 8,500 mark. The bank stocks continue to be under pressure, with the Bank Nifty down about 200 points today. The mid-caps were not spared either, with the mid-cap index losing about 200 points. Sonia standing by with the day's market action. Sonia, what were the triggers that led to the sell-off today specifically?
Well, there was complete mayhem on the Lal Street, as you rightly pointed out, and there are a couple of factors that we can attribute to the sell-off. The first and the most important factor is the weakness that we saw in earnings. That actually dampened spirits all through the trading session. And then we had weak global cues and, of course, the Delhi exit poll results that are indicating that tomorrow there could be a dramatic comeback of the Aam Aadmi Party. So that too has dampened sentiment a tad bit. But as you rightly pointed out, it's the 7th straight session of a fall in our markets. The market breadth was very weak today, and the crucial reason is that we got a reality check as far as earnings are concerned. So today L&T in late trade reported a very disappointing set of numbers, 14% drop in their standalone profits. They've cut their order inflow guidance. The commentary is extremely cautious and weak. So that stock was down and out. But apart from that, you had others like Tata Steel, GAIL, Apollo Tyres reporting very weak numbers, and all of that led to a sell-off, not just in the frontliners, but in the broader markets as well. So first, to take you through the losers, as I mentioned, earnings reactions in the form of L&T, Tata Steel and GAIL. So those were your three biggest losers post disappointing numbers. A lot of heavyweights sold off today. SBI, ICICI Bank, TCS, Tata Motors are stocks that came under some selling pressure. Then you had on the gaining side some defensive moves. So pharmaceuticals and IT did well. Dr. Reddy's and Sun Pharma were higher. Infosys, Wipro and HCL Tech bucked the trend today. But in the mid-cap space, there was quite a bit of bleeding that we saw, especially with numbers or earnings that disappointed. So look at J&K Bank. It was down about 18% by the time we closed for trade. Apollo Tyres down 12.5%. Jet Airways down about 6%. And other losers from the banking space include names like OBC, Bank of India, Union Bank, all completely thrashed. Of course, tomorrow we have the Delhi exit poll, the Delhi polls outcome as well. And ahead of that, the market, fearing the worst, has sold off completely. So a cocktail of bad news really that dragged the markets lower today.
We are in a short-term corrective phase, but it does not change the overall bullish view that I have in the market. There are Delhi elections, and then you have a budget, etc. You have global markets which are going through their ups and downs. So this is causing a little bit of short-term panic, which I think would probably take the Nifty down to 8,300 or thereabouts, plus minus a few points. However, I still, as I said, I reiterate that it's a correction in a larger bull market. I think that post-budget we would hopefully see a much stronger run.
There could be a pre-budget rally. You could have lots of hopes building up. I think the real challenge will be for this market to go through this slack earnings period that we are going to witness over the next 6 months, and then see whether the momentum in GDP, which is what we require, the momentum in capital investments by corporates, the momentum in consumption by the households, whether all that comes through or not.
All right, that's the action as far as Dalal Street is concerned. For the 7th straight day, we saw the markets falling today. But from Dalal Street now to Mint Street, the rupee ended the day at 62.16 to the dollar versus 61.69 in the previous session. But let's move away from that to the big story tonight. There is good news for the macro economy. A revised base tier and a new method of calculation basically means that the Indian economy will grow by 7.4% in FY15. The CSO says this growth will be aided by a 7.5% growth between October and December of 2014. Now remember, last month the CSO had revised the previous year's economic growth to 6.9% from the earlier 4.7%, and this had prompted even the Reserve Bank Governor Raghuram Rajan to question the spurt in growth. CNBC TV 18's Rituparna Bhuyan caught up with Ashish Kumar, the Director General of the CSO, and asked him about how he would respond to the fact that there are questions being raised about the data in the new series and whether or not that's aligned to what we're seeing on the ground.
This new series has given a completely new structure of economy. And this new structure which was not revealed, which was not available because of the manner in which the methodology was being adopted and followed.
Right.
Now this change of methodology has resulted into the numbers which are truly measuring the changes in the economy.
Right.
And therefore, my request to all those who are in the policy or who are in the use of these numbers, they should have a look at more closely at the numbers in which we have given. We are giving the detailed reasons for all why the changes have occurred, what systems have changed, and how they are internationally comparable.
Right.
And therefore, these are the good numbers, and only thing is one has to really look at with an open mind to start using it.
Can we say that going by the data that is available with you and that is being extrapolated in this GDP series, does this mean that the burden of fiscal deficit as far as the government is concerned, there will be some cushioning?
No, that question of the burdening of fiscal deficit has to be addressed by the finance ministry.
Right.
We have given the GDP number, which is a denominator, for the purpose of working out all these exercises.
Right.
Now, they'll have to make an assessment. It's a policy question, which is to be made. To what extent they will be able to take as a proportion, as a reasonable number for carrying forward for the 15-16 budget.
So let's stay with that story now. How is it possible for the GDP to rise when output is not rising as much? The chairman of the National Statistical Commission, Pranab Sen, said that value addition is what is driving incomes higher and hence the spurt in the GDP. So while you're not actually seeing a pickup in volumes, for instance, if you look at auto sales, there is more value addition and hence the spurt in GDP. That is his explanation. Let's listen in.
What has been high is the value addition. So in a sense, for the same value value of output, you're getting higher value added. The story is not of an economy which is growing faster because output is growing faster. It's a story where incomes are growing faster because value addition is going up.
Well, that's Pranab Sen there, and Lata joins us now to take us through her analysis of the estimates. Lata, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty surrounding the data. There's many different opinions coming in, on whether this data actually is aligned to ground reality. Look at what's happening with corporate earnings. Look at what's happening with auto sales, for instance, and then you get a 7.4% GDP number. What do we make of this?
Yes, indeed. The best part is that the current year's GDP itself has been revised to 7.4%, which makes us, yes, as everyone is noticing, faster than China. But yes, it's a low base. The breakup is interesting. The first quarter, the GDP is believed to have grown at 6.5%. Second quarter at 8.2%. And remember, that's this quarter of a poor monsoon, a poor kharif. And Q3 growing at 7.5%. If you take the average, the residual number for the fourth quarter works out to 7.4% GDP growth. If you take a sectoral division, agriculture is believed to have grown in the current year at 1.1%, industry at 5.9%, and services at 10.6%. Well, the key takeaways for the analyst community is that this strong 7.4% GDP growth is not corroborated by actual auto sales numbers or by corporate earnings. If you witness the L&T earnings, for instance, or the Tata Steel earnings for Q3 itself, the chairman of the Statistics Commission, Dr. Pranab Sen, explained this by saying that volume may have been lower, but value added by India Inc. was higher. That is, they produced more with lesser costs, which is what he meant by value addition. And therefore, he expects India Inc. will pay higher taxes in the fourth quarter. Now, we'll have to wait and see for that. The other key takeaway is that the GDP, according to the CSO, in the current year, in nominal current prices, works out to 126.5 lakh crore. Now, the budget had estimated GDP at 128.7 lakh crore. So 4.1% of 128 lakh crore had worked out to 5.3 lakh crore. That is the kind of deficit the government could run up. Now the government can run up a deficit of only 5.2 lakh crore if it wants to maintain that 4.1% fiscal deficit. So government has 10,000 crore less to spend. The final takeaway from today was that the CPI data, which is going to be announced on February 12th, will also be on the new base of 2011-12, but that will not be a huge surprise according to Dr. Sen, again, chairman of the Statistics Commission, who should know these things. He says within food, the weight of protein food like milk will be higher, cereals will be lower. However, overall food itself will get a lower representation. Services will get a higher representation. Short point CPI won't change so much like GDP has changed, and therefore perhaps the RBI's rate policy won't be disturbed much.
The first 2 or 3 quarters, we did see some scaling up of expenditure. Expenditure was front-loaded. It's only in the last quarter that we would be likely seeing a compression in expenditure. So public administration and defense largely associated with government expenditure programs. 20, of course, looks a bit at a higher level, but on a relative scale between the first quarter, second quarter and the third quarter would have been much higher. So we need to, of course, look at why the 20% has come, but the direction seems to be quite all right, actually, given the high-frequency data of the government expenditures.
July to September quarter benefited from credit growth picking up, where wholesale funding was replaced by financial reintermediation, and October to December saw very strong deposit growth on the back of the NI deposit scheme. So I think that in particular it doesn't baffle me too much. It's the general upgradation of manufacturing by 200-300 basis points over the last couple of years, which doesn't sync with capacity utilization on the ground, which is a little more of a disconnect.
Those are reactions there to what the CSO has announced, 7.4% GDP estimate coming in for FY15. On to earnings corner now, India's largest engineering and construction company, L&T, has reported a weak set of third quarter numbers. Revenues up 9%, net profit grew just 8.8%, and the back of margins coming under pressure across segments. Farabuk Vora and Archana Shukla report on L&T's numbers.
The third quarter of FY15 has not been kind to L&T. The company missed street estimates on almost all parameters, and it didn't help that with margins coming in at a flat 12.1% due to a sharp decline in oil prices, which led the company to rework quite a few contracts. Revenues from infrastructure, which accounts for nearly 50% of the company's total revenues, jumped 22.3%. But this good news was dampened by margins in the segment falling 110 basis points to 7.5%. Barring the services sector, all core segments saw revenues decline 20 to 55%. This has forced the company to advise caution in its outlook.
Sectors which are yet to really take off is power, minerals, metals, because the issues of coal block reallocation, the mining ban and all the controversies surrounding it. Roads is not going to see much action in the immediate term because the PPP model needs to be revisited. So what is seeing traction is some transportation infra, some amount of metros and airport related work. Water and renewable energy is seeing some traction. Power transmission distribution, because investment in distribution is seeing some traction.
This caution also spilled over to its order book position. While consolidated order inflows, which offer a pulse as to the industry's recovery, saw a sturdy 19% growth, the company has cut its consolidated order inflow guidance for the full year from 20% to 15 to 20%. While some see this as an indication of challenging times ahead, the company says it does not mean zero opportunities.
We have a fair backlog right today. And therefore, we're not putting ourselves in undue pressure to go behind order inflows. We bid what we need to bid, both in India as well as in the Middle East. In my view, in our view, there are opportunities that we need not go too aggressive in terms of booking these orders. If these orders are packaged well, if these orders come out in a manner that the company's business model permits it, for example, turnkey, design and build, using your engineering strength, etc., I think there's a fair chance to book the orders the way we need to book it.
But here's where the company does raise a warning flag. It says that despite sentiment in India improving, a recovery in the domestic business is still at least a year away. So the coming 3-4 quarters will be a bit of a mixed bag where growth is concerned. In Mumbai with Farabuk Vora, Archana Shukla.
Well, a disappointing quarter there from L&T, and the stock down almost 7% today. But the other big story tonight, the Indian Express, along with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, has released names of Indian account holders at the HSBC Bank's Swiss subsidiary. Now, the list includes nearly 1,200 Indians who allegedly hold bank accounts. The government has said it has most of those names that have been published by the Indian Express and will probe these cases expeditiously. Ashmit Kumar and Sapna Das get us the details.
The government has initiated prosecution against 60 foreign account holders in its black money offensive.
But it had to face tough questions today after the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, or ICIJ, published details of account holders at HSBC's Swiss subsidiary. The ICIJ has published a list of nearly 1,200 Indians with overseas bank accounts. The list claims that the total money in these accounts amounted to over 25,000 crore rupees. This list is double the size of the list provided by the French authorities in 2011, which had 628 names.
आइडेंटिफाई करने के बाद लगभग 350 अकाउंट्स होल्डर्स ऐसे हैं जिनकी असेसमेंट पूरी हो चुकी है। 350 के करीब की असेसमेंट पूरी हो चुकी है। बाकियों की असेसमेंट जो है वो 31 मार्च 2015 तक पूरी हो जाएगी। जो इसमें से गैर कानूनी पाए जा रहे हैं उनके खिलाफ प्रोसिक्यूशंस लॉन्च होंगी।
The government claims that many of the names released today overlap with the data already available. However, both the government and the Supreme Court appointed Special Investigation Team has agreed to cast a wider net, acknowledging the need to probe new names.
Requirements of the law, appropriate action will be taken. Action is taken, prosecution is also launched against some persons. Right. And we have to go through the names, we have to find out how much amount is stressed there, and action will be taken.
The SIT has reached out to the income tax authorities and the Enforcement Directorate to verify claims of undeclared income. Meanwhile, the Finance Minister has assured that the Swiss authorities will cooperate provided the government can bring to the table additional evidence.
बिना एविडेंस के कुछ करना और उसको साबित ना कर पाना फिर उसका बहुत लाभ नहीं होगा। तो इसमें कुछ एडिशनल नाम भी आए हैं। अब वो एडिशनल नाम रेजिडेंट इंडियंस हो और उनका अकाउंट हो तो केस बनता है।
The government has also sought to clarify that the mere presence of foreign accounts is not the same as stashing undeclared money overseas. The IT department is expected to complete its assessment of the accounts in question by the 31st of March. In New Delhi, Ashmit Kumar.
Well, staying with that story, it was not just India. French newspaper Le Monde has also exposed the cache of information showing how HSBC helped its clients from across the world dodge tax claims. Now, in a joint investigation, the documents have now been passed to the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists. The Guardian newspaper and more than 50 media outlets around the world, almost 30,000 accounts holding $120 billion in balances have been leaked. HSBC has admitted to failings by its Swiss subsidiary. The bank said, and I quote, "We acknowledge and are accountable for past compliance and control failures." And of course, this is of course a global story with significant implications.
And now on to the big national story of the day, a political and constitutional crisis in Bihar. Nitish Kumar has met with the governor and staked claim to form the government in the state. Nitish has claimed the support of 130 MLAs from JDU, RJD, Congress and the CPI. Nitish was accompanied by JDU President Sharad Yadav and RJD Chief Lalu Prasad Yadav. Expelled Chief Minister Jitin Ram Manjhi has hit back, saying he can be ousted only by a float test. He also added Nitish Kumar's election as the head of the party state legislature is not valid.
जिस शक्ति परीक्षण या जिस बहुमत साबित करने की बात उन लोग कर रहे हैं, हम कहां उससे भाग रहे हैं। हम तो सिर्फ कह रहे हैं कि चूंकि हम लेजिस्लेचर पार्टी और विधायक दल की बैठक ऑलरेडी बुला चुके हैं, हम 19 को 20 को या 23 को हम अपना बहुमत साबित करना चाहेंगे। सबसे पहले है कि वो नेता तो चुने गए, वो गलत नेता चुने गए हैं।
उन्होंने इस बात को सुना है और यही कहा है कि हमने बुलाया है इनको। मांझी जी भी मिलने का समय मांगा है, मिल लेंगे और इसके बाद हम कोई फैसला कर देंगे। हम लोगों ने ये बात कह दी है कि कोई भी निर्णय तत्काल होना चाहिए, जिसका जिक्र आपको लालू जी ने कहा, इमीडिएट करिए।
महामहिम जी, 20 तारीख से असेंबली है, ज्वाइंट सेशन है और आप ही को भाषण करना पड़ता है, मालूम है ना गवर्नर को, तो उसमें कोई कंफ्यूजन नहीं हो। नीतीश कुमार को पूरा समर्थन है। ये उनका पार्टी का एक नेता जो उसको नामित किए थे उनको लोग हटाए। तो नीतीश कुमार जी को फोन करके बताइए कि कब उनको ओथ लेना है।
Well, the RJD chief, among others, backs Nitish Kumar, but while the suspense there continues in Delhi, it is decision day tomorrow. The Congress is already bracing for a poll defeat, as most exit polls predict a landslide victory for the Aam Aadmi Party. Sources close to Congress leader Ajay Makhan have said that he will resign as Congress General Secretary if he loses his seat tomorrow. AAP chief Arvind Kejriwal congratulated party members and asked them to relax till the results are announced. Meanwhile, the BJP seems to be bracing for defeat as well. Delhi BJP CM candidate Kiran Bedi has said that she will take full responsibility if the BJP loses the poll, though the BJP continues to maintain that its internal assessment shows that it is ahead in Delhi.
मैंने अपना सब कुछ दिया 17 दिन में, जितना मुझे टाइम मैंने अपने लिया या मुझे दिया गया, ये कुदरत की देन है। तो मैं किसी चीज, जब मैं इम्तिहान के लिए सब कुछ अपने आप को देती हूँ, मैं चैन से सोती हूँ, क्योंकि नतीजा मेरे हाथ में नहीं होता है। मेरा हाथ में है सिर्फ कर्म करना और अपना सब कुछ देना।
All the exit polls have confirmed what our own internal surveys had said. So, all in all, it looks like a clear victory going by all the exit polls.
Well, decision day for Delhi, and stay tuned to CNBC TV 18 starting 7 a.m. tomorrow morning as we get you all the action from the national capital. On that note, it's time for us to wrap up this edition of India Business Hour. From all of us here, goodbye. Many thanks for watching.